Shout out to Dan for having T-handles. As an engineer, I like real Allen wrenches. I was like most guys and had a bow I thought was tuned, and it was not. Dan's TAC setup. This riser, from a bow accessory manufacturer's standpoint, double burger hole, love it. Much stronger, much easier to use in this application as well.
So you'll just snug this up, not too tight.
Yeah, we're just finger tight. We're gonna throw the rest on.
You have a set screw with that one?
No set screw, because we use both burger button holes.
Gotcha.
Sometimes these are a little snug. We send high grade screws. They'll be a little snug the first time through. They get some paint in the holes or whatever. So now this thing will self-align. Rock it a little bit. I'm gonna put a little downward pressure onto the top of it so it's pushing, the mounting block is pushing on top of both bolts. Pretty much guarantees we're very, very level. There's 6 teeth on this thing. They're double-sided, so you got 12 points of contact plus the 2 flats. We're 14 points of contact. This rest, when it goes on, it goes back every time in the same spot. It does not need to be cranked on real tight. And then we ain't even gonna mess with this one. If for some reason you just elect to do this, this is your insert. String goes through our beveled edge here. Burn this off. You don't want a huge ball or it won't pull back through the insert. Push this guy back through here. Hopefully she'll want to go. If not, we gotta make a little adjustment here. Okay, so you can see on the prophecy, we do this intentionally. The washer, the screw that's retaining the knob on here, the washer covers the top of the set screw. It's something we were going to cover here shortly about how to set the timing and how easy it is. B, it keeps that set screw from ever falling out. So we're going to back the screw off a little bit. There's just a tiny bit of light Loctite on there. I've been super blessed to spend a lot of time with the best target archers in the world. With Jesse Broadwater, Greg Poole's a phenomenal bow tuner, Shane Wills, I think Kendall Woody's national champion. There's a whole crew of guys that comes back with that entire group of people that I've been blessed to spend a lot of time with over the last 10, 12 years and just watching their processes and learning and listening. Back the set screw a little farther out. Our cord should slide right through now. Of course, I can't see what's going on. You guys can. Okay, yeah. Good. We're going to tighten this screw back down. What's cool, the way we have it designed is to set my timing, I come out till it just bumps against that washer, and I'm going to come in half a turn. So we want this to be able to pull through, okay? So when we come in to set our timing here in a moment, this will automatically set time. That's all the tension it needs. It can still pull through. We'll draw the bow. It's pretty much going to set its timing itself. You got timing alignment marks on the top of the knob right here, and 2 on the body. Dan's trying to get us in view here. This line just needs to be somewhere between those 2. And actually the way this sear system works, it can be a little above it, but those are the 2 lines that keep it safe. And it gives you some room. You know, you get out on a hot day and your strings stretch a little, limbs stretch a little bit. It's not super sensitive on timing. It's just really the fastest setup you're really going to see on a fall away. So, all right, jumping in the press here on the last chance. One of the things I do like that Matthews does, if you haven't used one, and I don't work on a ton of Matthews, but they're clamp design here that they put on the limb to keep it from splitting fits into the fingers of a LAS just perfectly. Get our insert in here, boom, drops right in, screw goes in. This is how quick the QD works on this thing. I did go through some versions that were potential quick snap features and buttons, and they all ran into inherent issues. And yeah, then maybe that's not a quick detach button, but honestly, how long did that take? So we're just going to pull our string through here, take a good portion of the slack out, and honestly, because the rest and all the pressures are going to pull this thing all the way up, you don't have to serve the bottom of this thing in. Bring her back, nice and slow. The rest is starting to set its time. And just that process and being able to pull that through, you can see the 2 timing marks are already perfect. And now the cord is just pulling through on its own now as we draw the bow. So confirm cam timing, you can see our insert is still pointed straight at the rest. The reason I like to make sure it's doing that is you potentially, if it's facing backwards sideways, the load of the rest could turn the cable a little bit and change your cam timing. It doesn't really put enough pressure on it to really affect your cam timing much, but it's just simple to make sure it's pointing at the rest upon installation. So we're done. Timing is set on the rest. We're going to let this filler back down. Come into our micro adjust. Just break the lock set screw down, and I'm just going to move my micro adjust way inside. I like to just bring it in to this hash mark. I've still got a lot of micro adjust room to go that way, but right around this hash mark, somewhere in there, and I'm going to tighten that down right there. And we're going to work from that position. That brings the knob in under the side of the rest. Things are protected there. On the bows, these thicker risers, today's newer bows, this is just a nice little addition to be able to do protect the knob, keeps things a little closer, and it's going to let us move the launcher back in closer to the rest, which even though there's basically no play because we have to lightly press this axle through these bearings, it's just going to bring our load in closer here. It takes very little pressure on these screws because the threads retain the screw just fine. So we're ready to go there. Come in just under the rest right here. Cut that off, lightly burn that so the end doesn't fray. I knew obviously coming into this, following you, you're an absolute beast. And I lift 6 days a week. I have for 5 years, but I am the slow and heavy guy. Paced, I'm just, I guess for lack of a better term, I'm a power lifter per se. You know, slow and heavy, but I know my muscular endurance is poor. So I knew coming into this that it was going to be a great experience for me to get pushed at a level that, and on watching Dan, guys, Dan was nice to me. I'm pretty certain he ran at about 50% pace, just so I was maybe in the middle of the workout with him. But no, it was everything I expected and more, and it was all the pain I expected.
That was 10 minutes.
I know.
That's it.
That's it?
That's what we did.
No, I know that. It was only 10 minutes, but like I said when I got here.
How's your first time on that bike?
I've rode those before.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I hate them.
Oh yeah.
They're undefeated.
Let's go back to the days of the old Schwinn windmills.
Yeah, Schwinn Aerodyne.
Yeah, they're nice.
Basically a little functional bodybuilding split, push, pull, supersetted. We did a warm up with a crossover. Did some shoulder work, supersetted. I mean, we did strength and hypertrophy bodybuilding. It was like literally a 12-minute window. And then our first conditioning piece was a 10-minute ascending. And we just have one more and we're done. And you can get a lot of results. You can get a lot of bang for your buck in a short amount of time. But you bow hunters watching, you archers watching, I'm giving Nick a set of crossover symmetry to take home with me. He's had shoulder injuries in the past. Bulletproof your shoulders, stay off the sidelines.
Every shot we take in the field is up, down, at an angle. You're on one knee. You're in that crazy situation where you belly crawled in, you roll over on your back, and you draw the bow and sit up. We're never in any position that's like standing in your yard executing perfect shots. So you want a bow that is ultimately forgiving. And that comes down to building a tune that ensures the arrow's coming out in the best possible manner and the most forgiving. All right, guys, we're going to build the bear shaft here real quick for Dan's TAC. We're going to put some electrical tape down here on the fletch stand so we match weights so that our bear shaft weighs exactly the same as our fletch shaft. So Dan's TAC arrow's in here at 341.5. So within plus or minus a grain or two of that is just fine for a bear shaft. It's basically just trying to cover the same area that he has fletched. If you go half inch either direction beyond, not the end of the world. We're just trying to create the same balance point as well.
Bingo. To the T.
All right.
Dang.
Let's go.
Okay. We're torque tuning today, guys. Like for real. And you can do it proper with the Prophecy. You also can torque tune. We have a landslide, and it's a dovetail. So you get to do like both, right? You get to do it with the rest first and then the sight.
Oh, well, a combination of both.
I'm just gonna take the set screw, loosen it. I'm gonna make this lighter, and then you can test it. You can click. That's a lot hotter. Friends, I hate to admit this, but yesterday my Too Simple broke on me. It did it in here first. I was pulling back. It broke before I even got to full draw. Nick and I were like, what? Maybe it was me. Maybe I somehow accidentally touched the trigger. No. Then it happened outside. So I'm gonna have to send that one in, but luckily my backup's always been a wise choice, and I have 2 of them because 2 is 1. So switched over the knob. This is a custom knob I got from a dude. He's on Instagram. It's like Okie knob, custom knobs or something. I kind of like it, a little more grit. Should I shoot one more?
No, I think we're gonna make one adjustment here. We're just going to move the rest down a little bit. Break the micro adjust. This is the new Prophecy QD. The Prophecy, everybody's pretty familiar with. It's been out for about 4 years. The QD, this allows us on the Pro Series frame using the original Freak Show QD mount to now have a fall away. That is a quick detach rest, so you can have multiple setups. You can take your rest off during travel if it's damaged. You can have a backup rest that's attuned as well in case you're on a hunt and you're worried about a rest being damaged. Gives you a ton of really awesome options. You know, if you're the guy with one bow, which most people are, you can have multiple setups, and all you got to do is swap a rest, swap a sight. You don't need another $1,500 bow. And you can have one bow that fits you perfect. It's tuned exactly the way you like it. You swap setups as far as the rest of the sight goes, but the bow feels the same. So we're going to just move this thing down a little ways, probably about 2 turns. Tighten the micro adjust lock screw back down on the vertical adjustment. Let Dan shoot that again. We'll double check the timing here. We did move the rest down a little bit, but the Prophecy has a pretty wide range of timing availability. It's not sensitive like some other rests, so I'm not worried about that right there. It'll still fire just fine. If we decide a little on farther down the line that we want to tighten the timing up a little bit, we can.
The whole idea behind the Prophecy is like, so I have multiple bows, and every bow is a little different. Okay, and it's expensive to get a chunk of aluminum for $1,500 and bounce from, I got a TAC setup, I got a whitetail setup, I got a elk setup. So instead of having 3 different bows, you could buy a rest for a couple $100, get 3 of them instead of, and then you can just literally take this off and it doesn't lose anything. It's got all the marks to where you could take that off, put your TAC rest on for your TAC arrows, and put your TAC sight on or TAC sight tape on. And that's kind of a cool system that maybe if you're on a budget, which we don't do a good job here on the channel talking about budget options, this is going to be for you, and you're still going to get precision super tuned setups and the same bow that you're familiar with. That's a huge deal. I don't put fingers on a riser, guys, so these bows jump out of my hands, so I got to put a sling on everything.
Now I'm just guessing here, guys, because I make a product called a HR sling that I'll be sending Dan a bunch of yellow ones. But we need to...
This was my plan all along, was to make you do this and be like, God, I have a product.
Go ahead and take your hand out of there.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be making sure Dan has what he needs there with some HR slings.
That's a pretty good hole.
That is something we can play with. Slightly knocked high. Let's go outside.
Okay, so we're at 50 yards. We found 50. I don't have a sight tape for this bow yet, but it's safe to say I found 50. So Nick's just finishing up lunch. When he comes out here, he's gonna have me torque to the left. Not like where the derail the bow, but just torque it in a little bit and then try to make a really good shot. And we're gonna see where that impact is, but that was right down the middle. Oh, there he is. A little bit of rain, a little bit of wind, but we're shooting. It's springtime here in the Pacific Northwest, the PN-Dub. Got Nick from AAE. We just put the Prophecy on, guys. We ran out of time filming yesterday, so we're going part 2. We're gonna torque tune, so I'm gonna try to shoot a good one right now and then torque it on purpose and see what kind of flight characteristics, and he'll make adjustments. So that's like the same exact impact as the last shot, right in the bullseye. So, okay, dude, I just bullseyed at 50. Again, 2 in a row. I'm feeling good.
All right, we're gonna torque tune this thing, so I want you to come to draw, torque it to the left, hold it torqued, center the peep, execute the best shot you can. Pretty certain that hit the dot.
Really?
Yeah.
I torqued the shit out of that one.
Is there one in the target already?
Yeah.
All right, well, we really want to go over some torque tune stuff here. However, we're gonna have Dan shoot this again, but we did kind of set that bow up with kind of an understanding of where we think it needs to be, and well, Dan, I'm disappointed in you.
That second one to the right is the torque.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's a 1/4 of an inch off. Can't you do better?
Let's switch to this guy then. Let's tell the folks at home like the what ifs. So if I had torqued it on purpose, my bow to the left, and I'm right-handed,
right,
and I had an impact, what would you have done?
So He's right-handed, torquing it to the left. Let's say he impacted then to the left, farther to the left. We would then expand the distance between the rest and the sight. And by that, using our Prophecy QD, we could move the rest back or the sight forward, or a combination of the two. If it went the other way, if he was torqued left and it goes to the right, we can
bring
move
it in,
the rest forward, which the rest is all the way forward right now, or we can move the sight in, bringing those two together.
Guys, just so you know, this is what step in your process?
Once I come out of the shop and I've got a halfway decent bear shaft tune, not perfect, or paper tune, this is next. We are not doing anything else because we're theoretically going to be moving some things. We're going to move the sight. We're going to do some things that's going to change our tune.
Yeah, so if you're subscribing to the way of Nick from AEE, you would torque tune first. And now I understand, like, okay, you get everything situated in the shop. You shoot your bear shaft, it's decent. Okay, walk out to 50. That's at 50, guys. And obviously make sure that everything's doped in, and then shoot a real shaft at 50, and then torque on purpose. And you can torque either way, left
either
or
way,
right.
Whatever you're comfortable
But we
with.
went left, so we didn't cant the bow, we just torqued. So if you guys look at this, I just turned the bow like this, still found it in my peep, centered, and had a good clean break. And then Nick, and I'm just dumbing this down for me so I remember this when you leave. With this rest, you can move it away or closer.
Correct.
And it'll change your impact and bring them closer together.
Correct.
Because all hunting situations have a degree of torque in them, guys. This is why you do this. Who invented this?
This actually, so we'll say in recent times, Jesse Broadwater brought this back to life. With our original Freak Show rest going back 2012-ish, probably close to 10 years ago. This was kind of a known commodity going all the way back into the 60s when you used to see bows with a whole lot of big overdraws and everything on them. They weren't just trying to shoot short arrows. The designs of those bows needed that type of setup for torque tuning. But a lot of things strangely in archery died for like 25 years.
The other thing I would say is yesterday, different setup, didn't have your rest on, we were still able to torque tune, and we showed that pretty well, and all we did is we ended up moving the dovetail closer, more compression, and it eliminated some torque. And it was already a tuned bow.
Yeah.
So I feel like these are just these advanced steps that I haven't been doing that I invite you guys to start tinkering with. Always be tinkering. All right, let's bear shaft.
Tuning with a bear shaft, because tuning with a bear shaft ensures that the bear shaft, no help, no vanes. Vanes are there to cover up mistakes. This ensures that that arrow is coming out of the bow as perfectly straight as possible. And, you know, the people who watch the video, they'll actually see I'm not going for an absolutely perfect arrow. You had a dead straight arrow today. Coming out of the bow, it was an inch left. And again, hanging out with all these guys, I know a lot of little tricks that kind of shortcuts some of the final tuning things that we see when we do line tuning. And because you'll go through all the processes of lining tuning and you're making these micro adjustments to your rest, and then we come back and the whole point from that is to then say, okay, where is my bear shaft? Where does it impact when I break clean shots? And that is my reference point. I know when I get to camp, when I get to the tournament, you're just at home and you haven't shot the bow in 2 weeks and all of a sudden it doesn't feel right. Grab your bear shaft, go shoot it and see where the impact point is. It should, with today's technology, quality strings, quality, rest, cams, limbs, everything that goes into the bows today are so much more advanced. Albeit tunes will change, you know where it needs to be. So, if something bad happens, TSA occurs, you're on a backcountry hunt and your bow falls off a horse, you slide down a mountain, something like that occurs, and you're like, man, is my bow okay? I don't know if it's going to shoot okay. Cool, you could shoot an arrow with vanes on it, but you don't know if it's actually coming out dead straight because those vanes are going to recover it. And then if you do shoot a shot that's torqued funny, something weird, and you aggravate how poorly the tune is, you can wound an animal. So knowing where that bear shaft impact is, that's your key ingredient to just take 1 minute to go, yes, my bow's good, let's go. All right, guys, so you see Dan's got one right in the middle. It's low. We're bear shaft tuning now. We're not worried about whether or not it hits dead in the middle. That was a good shot. We're just looking for a reference point now.
So I'm going to aim for the same spot I just did.
So when we were inside dealing with the paper tune, there's something that occurs called dynamic spine and dynamic paradox. So what happens when you're trying to paper tune is that arrow within the first 10, 12 feet is flexing all over the place until it stabilizes. And sometimes it can give you a false reading through paper, which is why I only care about a basic paper tune. I don't want to see a big 1 to 2 inch tear. This flight right here, point right, is showing us a left paper tear, which is opposite of what we thought we were getting inside. This is actually great because I want to move the rest back to the right a little bit anyways.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to move the rest here a little bit. We're going to get this on close. We're really close though. The rest can maybe come down a shade, but we'll work on the horizontal first and then bring in the vertical.
So because the bear shaft's a little higher and to the right.
So we're gonna move the rest to the right, and then we'll establish that that is still good, and then we'll move the rest probably down a little. With your left helical, I want to be at 20 yards around 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch at 430.
Got it.
Normally I wouldn't. I do one at a time, but if you're confident, we know the rest needs to come down just a little, about 3/4 of a turn. Quick tip here, guys. Dan's watching him shoot, and he's getting a little bit of bob, which means the front's maybe a little heavy for him. So I want to increase back leverage. We don't want to change overall mass weight though. So this is what back bar brackets are about. We're gonna check this on this bracket. It looks like we're probably about 4.5. I want to move this up because he doesn't have a ton of leverage on the back. We're gonna move this up a reasonable amount. Always reference it because when you loosen them up, they move. Use all parts of your body. All right.
You're gonna bump me to the right.
Yep.
I will say, I now know why Josh beat me at TAC using this bow. It is so not fair. It is so not fair using a target bow, man.
That ain't even a target bow yet.
Right. It's a little mini.
So, yep, I made a pretty big move. I actually moved just the launcher instead of the micro adjust. As you can see, we're now on the left side of the shaft, which is good. I want to move the micro adjust back to the other side a little bit. So what I really like seeing here is look how straight this arrow went in.
Yeah, that's straight.
Yeah, that's a really, really good looking arrow flight right there. So we're just barely going to bump the rest back to the left, not very much.
Just a teeny tiny.
Yeah, if you were shooting right helical, we'd be done.
Okay.
And in all honesty, there's no reason not to say that's done. So this is really good, especially with how straight that arrow is.
This is advanced tuning though, with the prophecy. So let's make that bump. And I want to see you guys to come see what he means by a teeny tiny bump and you're just moving to the left, just a little, right?
Yeah.
Way better.
All right, we are just gonna bump this thing to the left just a little bit.
Bear shaft's a little lower. What, 7 o'clock?
Yeah, 7:30. Previous shot was a little, I want to see it a shade low. We might just bump the rest just a tiny bit more. I just want to see it on this side of the shaft, just because the left helical, because you're causing a bit of a curveball is all. So that's it. But Dan, it's almost right on that biggest line, which you and I both seem to be a fan of obvious things.
That's good.
Dan broke, definitely his bear shaft to clean was really break watching him shoot it. You see, we haven't moved the impact point a lot, but we are starting to tilt the angle of the arrow in flight. It might equal a more forgiving shot with a bit of an angle, especially for guys who shoot off a blade. Right-handers, you hear people a lot saying, I want a high left tear shooting off a blade.
I've heard that.
We're not shooting off a blade here, and a lot of that times that has to do with just aiding and getting the arrow off the blade. We're obviously shooting a fall away with the prophecy. I don't think I want to move that anymore. We could theoretically actually come back and the arrow would be a little straighter, but it was getting a little farther away. I think this is really, really clean. This kind of tune here, and even where we were, guys, again, we've barely moved the rest. We're just really trying to make this thing super tight. So the one thing we could potentially do is step it out to say 30 and micro tune from 30 if we wanted to dive into that. But we've got really, this tune's better than 99.9% of the bows out there. There's very few people on the planet, mostly in the upper end of the target world, that are going to have a tune of this quality.
Friends, it's been fun. We've had Nick over here for 3 days. The prophecy, I think this could be a great rest if you're in the market for having multiple setups without buying multiple chunks of aluminum. What you said, the most important thing for me, like my takeaways was, if you love one bow, you know, when you have that one bow that just shoots so well for you, but you do sign up for TAC or 3D tournaments or indoor, buy yourself a couple rests. They can pop them off and have each one tuned for whichever specific category that your tune is for. And then when you travel, you can even take this off. It's not a big deal. Put it back on because TSA ain't too friendly. And lastly, you've completely flipped upside down my tuning schedule of, you know, getting a bow to shoot a bullet hole with veins on the back.
Yeah.
I think, guys, you're lying to yourself a little bit if you think that's good enough. And in archery, nothing's good enough. In my experience, that's why we ABT. We're always seeking perfection. And for the last 3 days, I've never shot so many bear shaft through paper in my shop, only to come out here and shoot bear shafts. When he arrived off the airplane, he bust out a bear shaft to check his tune with first. And that's just like, for me as an elk hunter, that makes a lot of sense to start having a bear shaft travel with me.
Absolutely. You know, once you get a tune that you're super happy with, that bear shaft is your reference. You never fletch that shaft. It is your gold. You keep that with the arrow. And you know, when you're building arrows, you pick your absolute best arrow, the one that everything is spinning the truest on, and that becomes your permanent bear shaft, because you want an arrow that's going to fly as true as possible out of the bow. Something that has some knock wobble or some point wobble, or the arrow itself isn't perfectly straight, isn't going to do that. So, you know, and then once you achieve that tune, you remember that point. Right now we're about probably 6:30, 7 o'clock at about 3/4 of an inch. If Dan decides, yeah, I don't want to bump my tune anymore, he knows that's it. He can show up, attack, and I don't care if you put the bow in the truck and you're riding around. Maybe the bow bounces around, whether you're flying. And for me, being in Arizona, it's super dry. Anywhere I go, the humidity change alone changes things. So I can whip out a bear shaft and throw a fletch shaft, a bear shaft down there, make sure they're both really clean shots, and know what my tune looks like when I get there. And that is just gives you so much confidence when you step out onto the line or you hit the field. You got a big bull in front of you and you're not in question whether or not, man, is my tune forgiving enough? You know, we've gone through torque tuning. That's probably my next biggest step. You know, we want to make sure that under pressure the bow's going to be forgiving for us, that we're not under pressure shooting a broadhead out there and we are in a funky position and fire an arrow off and that arrow flies sideways, that broadhead starts planing and takes the arrow off because we didn't have the bow set up as forgiving as possible.
Awesome. Nick from AEE. It's more than just vanes. It's more than stabilizers, also rest and a whole bunch of other stuff. Thank you for your time. You're an archery Yoda, and I appreciate it, and I wish we lived closer because I'd be picking your brain more. Maybe we'll do more content, guys. Comment below. Do you like Nick? He's nerdy. Tap the sub. We'll catch you on the next one.
314.
314 feet a second. That's the fastest I've ever shot. That 27-inch draw. So
that's moving.
That is moving and grooving.
You know what I really like about that? Albeit for Dan, these arrows, they only weigh 340 grains, but he's got 150 grains up front. I'm not into the Ranch Fairy 24% FOC, but I'm a firm believer, I've done a ton of homework, that 15 to 17% is a money point for fighting the wind and for a forgiving arrow. In this length arrow with 150 up front, you might even be pushing 18%, but this arrow is going to fight the wind really well. I just want to give Josh Jones a run for his money. Josh, love you to death, man. I just want to give you some good competition. Last year, I handed it over to you on day one. And day two, yeah, you were hungover, but so was I, and I lost you by 2 points. So I hope you're practicing, and I know you are, which has never happened before. I know you're worried, and you should be, because you better bring your A game. And he said if he shot his worst and I shot my best, I might beat him. So that's what maybe I need to happen. But I'm going to use his bow to beat him. Thanks for your help. Absolutely.